You can go now.
Good day, y'all, and a hearty welcome to CMA ANZ webinar on a very interesting topic. Is personality profiling useful in people and culture management? My name is Chris D'Souza, and I am the CFO as well as the CEO International for CMA Australia. I did a quick check of the registrations for the event today, and I was surprised to see we have participants from 50 countries across the globe registered for this webinar. That is an indication that our topic for today has global appeal. We run the CMA program, and I run a poll on day 2 of the CMA program that I asked the question, what is the critical success factor in the success of any organization? Some say it's the product that brings success. Some say it's the process. And some say it's their customer service. But when all is said and done, we acknowledge that it's all about people. It's people who create products and people who innovate the processes that form the basis for organizational success. But before I introduce our speaker for today, who is incidentally the part of our partnership, Australia and New Zealand. So our speaker is from New Zealand. But before we start, an important announcement. Our speaker, who has a wonderful name like mine, or exactly the same as mine, Chris Baker, will be happy to answer all your questions or clear all your doubts. So please feel free to put your question in the chat box, and Chris will answer them at the end. We'll have enough time for this. Now it is pointed out that Peter Drucker emphasized that it is customer should be the company's top priority and focus. He said the purpose of a business is to create and keep a customer. Now Richard Branson shifted the focus to employees, suggesting employing the right people should be the company's top priority. He said if you take care of employees, they will take care of your customers and they'll take care of your business. Now my theory is that it's not just the frontline employees, but all employees of the organization being focused on their customers is what leads to corporate success. But we all agree that people are crucial and critical to the success of any organization. It is crucial also that we hire the right people. So how do we ensure that we hire the right people? Our speaker today has an interesting perspective that personality profiling is useful in making sure that you hire the right people. And it's my pleasure to introduce to you our speaker, Chris Baker, the CEO of People Maps New Zealand Limited. Chris has spent his entire life working in people development as a school teacher, a company manager, a corporate accountant, a business coach, a sports coach, and as a personality profiler. He has an impressive array of roles he has been in. Through all of these, he has worked in people development. He has also owned and managed a significant sized microbrewery. During his time as an accountant, Chris was a member of both the New Zealand Society of Accountants and his successor, the New Zealand Institute of Chartered Accountants. He holds a diploma in teaching, a business degree, a diploma of business coaching, and a diploma of personality profiling. So he knows what he's talking about. In conjunction with the New Zealand University, he has developed a personality-based process for assembling cyber recovery teams that dramatically reduce the time it takes to overcome cyber attacks. With that introduction, I will hand you over to Chris, who will present this on the screen now. Chris, over to you.
Thank you very much, Chris. It's a pleasure and an honor to be invited to speak to this body of yours. I hope you guys come away with something of value today. The topic, just give me a second here. I will just share the screen so you can see my slideshow. Yeah, can I just confirm that you can see that now?
Yes, you can. We can definitely. Yes.
Yep. Fantastic. So just before we go any further, I just want to explain about the slides. Okay. You're not going to see anything flash and beautiful like a Hollywood production here. Our research, and we've done quite a bit of research into this and actual experience, is that slides that when we're in a teaching situation, slides that just have data on them a lot more of that data is retained by the viewers. So there's no pretty pictures and no beautiful backgrounds, no logos, just bits and pieces, highlights of what I'm going to be talking about. So the question that we're going to consider today is personality profiling useful in people and culture management? Now, obviously, I believe that, otherwise I wouldn't be working full-time in the field. And today I'm hoping to share with you enough information about that so that you can get a clear idea about profiling in general. I'm not going to be talking about the product that I promote, but just about profiling in general, to see whether it is, to see that it probably is something that you could use in a valuable and useful way in your businesses. Now, Chris did go over a little bit about my history, so I'll let that one go. When I was an accountant, when people asked me what I did for a job, I would tell them that I produced accounting reports that were accurate, relevant, and meaningful to assist my management colleagues to run the business profitably. My philosophy was that if my colleagues could not read, understand, and make effective use of my reports, then both my reports and myself were surplus to requirements. In those roles, I was also responsible for
Chris,
preparing...
we stopped seeing your slides. We can't see any slides. We can see a blank space. Sorry to disturb.
Yes, thank you very much for that. I'm reading my notes and not looking at my slides. Oops, sorry, we need to go up a bit.
Yep, no rush, no worries.
So background there. Yeah, so
you need to play the slideshow, I think. You can't see your slides.
Oh, you can't see them at all.
We can see the, we can.
Yeah, that's okay. If I do.
Yep, there we can see them now. Yep.
You can see them now?
Yep, we can.
Okay, I'll just do this here. You
yep.
can still see them okay?
Absolutely, you can see them okay. Go on.
Okay. So hang on a minute, I just got to set something else up here. So yeah, so I was there to produce reports that were accurate, meaningful, and relevant. In those accounting roles, I was also responsible for preparing accounting reports for the shareholders, the company's office, and the tax office. However, my only real value was the management reporting that I did. So why do I use personality sorry, I'm getting a little, just bear with me a second. Just go back to this slide here, sorry. These are just some highlights of the companies that I was an accountant for. A forestry company, $250 million worth of forest asset, telephone company, with 900 plus employees, and a meat company. So quite a range of different accounting things. The forestry company you could regard as a manufacturing company with a 25-year manufacturing cycle. Telephone company just sold services, obviously, and the meat company was what's called a disassembly company. It is a company that took live animals and broke them down into their parts, which is the opposite way that most things work, where you take a whole lot of individual components and put them together in a business. So we've done this one. So why do I use profiling? More important, because I've taken these philosophies with me into personality profiling. My belief is that if personality reports are not accurate, relevant, and meaningful, if people cannot read, understand, and make effective use of them, then they have no value. They have no reason to exist. Most people tell us that they believe that personality, character, call it what you will, is always important in recruitment. For most roles, more important than skills, knowledge, and experience. If you're one of those people, and if you have not been specifically trained in how to read people, then you're taking a huge risk if you rely purely on your own resources to understand the personality of your candidates. If you've ever appointed somebody who hasn't worked out, then you know how costly that can be in terms of both time and money. The purpose of personality profiling, of personality profiles, is to boost your ability to effectively read the people in your team in pretty much everything that you do with them, in recruitment and team building and managing, coaching, whatever you do with them. A little bit of history about profiling. At the beginning of the 20th century, this not much more than 100 years ago, there were no psychometric tools in existence. All there was some research done by the ancient Greeks. Following their initial work, personality profiling went into a long, dark age for 2,000 odd years. Into the 20th century, enter Freud. Now, Freud wasn't really a personality profiler, but his contribution to the subject was his mentorship of Carl Jung. Carl Jung produced a body of research that either directly or indirectly underpins most of the plethora of modern day psychometric tools. By the 1970s, a couple of today's profiling giants, DISC and Myers-Briggs, had appeared. Since then, several repackaged versions of DISC, along with a number of other psychometric tools, have been created. In my opinion, some are quite good, most are highly dubious. Freud and Carl Jung. So I said before that reports need to be accurate, meaningful, and relevant. Accurate, relevant, and meaningful. So what do we mean by accurate? All right, there are two really important tests for accuracy. The first one is consistency. Does a questionnaire produce consistent results? That is, if a candidate completes the questionnaire on 2 occasions, a few months apart, can it be relied upon to produce similar results each time? While some variation is normal and expected, too much makes a profiling tool unreliable and inaccurate. The second test is confidence or credibility or validation. It's not really possible to independently validate the results of a personality profiling tool in the same way that scientists can independently validate all sorts of things in the field of science, all right? The best that we can do is to run reports about individuals and get feedback from people who know them well, all right? Get the people who know them well to tell us whether the reports are, in their opinions, accurate. Now, when we get a large mountain of that kind of research, then we develop a high level of confidence that the personality tool that we're looking at is either reliable or not reliable. Most of the better profiling tools on the market have researched literally thousands, tens of thousands of profiles and feedback from many, many different people to validate the work that they've done in creating their tool and to give them confidence to go into the marketplace. Sadly, that's the good ones, all right? Most profiling tools have not done that. You might want to know why, you might want to ask yourself why that would be, but anyway, relevant, all right? Now, one of the biggest challenges, one of the biggest weaknesses of most profiling tools is that they are far too simplified and generalized to be of much value. Personality is extremely broad and complex. Most tools only produce a dumbed down, generalized report of each candidate that has nowhere near enough detail to be useful. Now, I understand why they would do that, okay? Because personality is so big and complex, it's too big to give all the information about somebody. There's too much information, it's too big, and most people wouldn't be able to cope with all of that. However, This lack of detail means that the report is unlikely to specifically address the context that led to it being generated. For example, if you're recruiting for an admin role, you will want to know different things about a candidate's personality than if you're recruiting them for, say, a management role. And that's different again from if you're wanting to blend a new employee into an existing team. And that's different again from if you're wanting to offer an employee some coaching. Good profiling tools only have a wide range of reports, and each one only reports on what's relevant in the immediate context. They do not provide the distractions of superfluous and therefore irrelevant data. Meaningful. Historically, far too many reports and profiling tools have been a haven for intellectual snobs. Their reports were full of academic and scientific languaging, which made them extremely difficult for the average layperson to read and understand and to get meaning from them. Only an academic or somebody with a psychology degree could read, understand, and utilize them. So why use a profiling tool? All right, because reading people's personality is too difficult to do without, for most people, too difficult to do without the aid of a profiling tool and for leverage, all right, so that you can process and understand people more quickly and more accurately and save yourself time. So how do we distinguish the good, the bad, and the downright ugly profiling tools? There are a great many tools on the market. Sad to say, most of them are rubbish. Here's some clues for distinguishing the more reliable ones. Things to watch out for. Profiling is a subset of psychology. If the profiling tool that you're looking at was not created by somebody with a genuine psychological background, it has to be questionable. Beware the languaging that a tool uses in its claims for having been created with genuine psychology. The words that many of them use are designed to mislead you into thinking that they have been created by a genuine person with genuine psychological knowledge and skills. Profiling is a real world tool. It's the question you need to ask yourself is, was the tool created by somebody with an extensive real world experience outside of academia? That's an interesting thing, but the world seems to be split down, not down the middle, but split between academics on the one hand who never work in industry and people in industry who never do much academia apart from getting their degree. So a good tool will have been created by somebody with extensive experience in both sides of the coin. Market confirmation. How many people have been profiled and what is the feedback about the accuracy of the reports? As a rule of thumb, I like to suggest that if a profiling tool hasn't been used to produce 1 million reports, then the database is likely to be a bit short of volume to get enough confirmation, enough confidence that the market is constantly agreeing that the reports are good. Languaging. Okay. Horoscopes and numerology and tarot cards, and I hope I'm not offending anybody here, and I apologize if I am, but there's plenty of research to tell us that they all rely on the use of what's known as Barnum-Fora languaging. That is languaging to fool readers into believing that the reports are accurate and useful. The Barnum-Fora languaging comes from the Barnum comes from P.T. Barnum, who owned Barnum and Bailey Circus, among other things. He was what's called a showman. He would be the guy at the beginning of a circus show, would stride into the ring with the lights all dimmed and the spotlight would come on him. He'd be wearing his black trousers and white shirt and black bow tie and red velvet jacket, top hat, ebony cane with an ivory handle, and he would yell out at the top of his voice, "Ladies and gentlemen, today you will be amazed. Today you will be frightened," and so on. And what he was doing was telling the audience what they wanted to hear. And that's what a number of the poorer quality profiling tools do. They don't have any real quality in what it is they're saying. They just say what they think the reader is going to want to read about themselves. And when people are read things that are written about themselves that they want to believe, they just seem to believe. The Fora part of this was, Fora was a psychology lecturer at a university, and he ran a test with his class. He gave them all a questionnaire that he had designed that looked as if it could be a personality profiling questionnaire. In the next lesson, he gave them all a report. And then he asked them individually what they thought of the report. And 80% said that they thought their report was pretty accurate. Now, the interesting thing was that he gave each and every one of them exactly the same report. And the report had nothing to do with the answers that they'd given in the questionnaire. So in profiling in particular, we have to be very careful that we're dealing with a tool that does not use deceptive languaging or Barnum-Fora languaging. Consistency of results. So we've talked about that before, right? So that when somebody does the questionnaire and then they do your questionnaire again, that they come up with a very similar report. There will always be a little bit of difference. Mood on the day can have some impact, and a couple of other factors, but a good profiling tool will consistently produce very similar reports for the same candidate. Questionnaire manipulation. Can candidates read the questions in a way that would enable them to manipulate the results so as to produce a predetermined outcome? Now, there is one very highly, very popular product on the market at the moment that I personally can read straight through the questions, and I can cause it to come up with any result that I want it to. You tell me what result you want it to come up with, and I'll produce that. So fortunately, most people are not devious, but some are, and you could end up with a result that is not what you're wanting if you use a profiling tool like that. Candidate fatigue. This is a phenomenon where if the questionnaire is too long, the candidates lose interest and the quality of their responses drops away. What research has been done that shows that if it's a paper questionnaire that people are answering and they're using a pen or pencil to enter their answers, they can do that for about 10 minutes before fatigue sets in. If it's an online questionnaire, point and click, they can do it for about 8 minutes before fatigue starts to set in. There are many profiling tools out there that have 30-minute, 45-minute, even 1 hour long questionnaires. It's possible, but highly unlikely that that candidates would complete one of those questionnaires without getting fatigue. Ease of reading. So in addition to the Barnum-Fora languaging issue that we mentioned before, is the report written in language that a user can read, understand, and utilize? All right. There is no reason, particularly nowadays with many skilled people who are able to write legal documents, for instance, in plain English, there's no reasonable why profiling reports can't be written in plain English. And the final one is boxing or typecasting. Do the reports place candidates into a small number, typically 4 to 10 boxes? People are far more complex than that. A good tool will have the capability of reporting on a large range of different personality attributes, say 100 or more for each candidate, and will give different levels of intensity for each of those attributes. So some examples of boxing There are some that use letters. There's one that uses 4 letters, ENTJ or something like that. It might be some of them. There are others that use DI or S or C. Others use birds, doves, owls, eagles, peacocks. Others that use colours, red, blue, yellow, green. Now, all of these are really just saying that people are not particularly diverse because they fit into one or the other, and that's not true. We all know that that's not true. We all know that people are very different. Yeah. So that's basically the end of what I prepared to talk to you about today, and very happy to take questions from here.
Thanks, Chris. Can you stop sharing so we can
Yep.
take, yeah. So you got the people who want to take down that, we give them again later. And yeah, so there are quite a few questions and some interesting ones at that. So I'll go in order that they've been received. It says, first one says, are personality tests better than face-to-face interviews? Are they substitutes? Are they substitutes for each other? Like, why have personality tests when having a face-to-face interview, you can read the face of a person and judge a personality. People feel confident they can do that.
Yeah. So neither is better than the other, in my opinion. They are both important components of a recruitment process, as well as background checking. All right. So 3 really important components. Just to go over them again: background checking, face-to-face interviews, and the personality profile. Beware though, in face-to-face interviews, when you ask a question and you get a response, you may have studied body language, and that might tell you, well, this response, this facial response or body language response means X, Y, Z. It doesn't necessarily always mean that. For a start, particularly at the beginning of an interview, candidates are guarded. We say they're wearing a mask. They're being very cautious about what they're revealing. And some people just have different body language. Okay.
Excellent. Thanks for that. The next question is, should organizations first decide what personalities they want in their team and then find them? Or do you think that great personalities fit in the best way in any organization?
So that's a multi answer or multiple different answers for that. For instance, if you were recruiting a heart surgeon, if you were a hospital and recruiting a heart surgeon, you would probably put all your emphasis on getting somebody with all the right skills and knowledge and experience, and very little emphasis on personality. All right, because if you don't have the right levels of skills and knowledge and experience, you run the risk of people dying or whatever and being sued and so on. So within that scenario, you might profile somebody so you can understand their personality so that you can work with them. In other roles, like accounting, for instance. Now, one of the reasons, what I didn't tell you before, was the reason I left accounting was because I wasn't very good at it. And it's not because I couldn't do it, because I could do it, and I got some very good marks at university. I wasn't good at it because my personality didn't align with it. And so if you were recruiting an accountant, you might want to be confident that your candidate you're looking to appoint is really good at attention to detail and following processes and other personality attributes like that. So it's a horses for courses scenario. Another part of the answer here is that if you already have several people doing the same role and you've got some good ones, then I would recommend you profile the good ones first and tease out what their personality attributes are, and then you've got a model to recruit for in the future.
Great, thanks for that. The next question is, can a personality of a person recruited for an admin role, for instance, never have the personality to become a manager for a managerial role? Cannot training help in changing one's personality?
Right. So the first thing is, we don't believe that personality changes. All right, it might evolve ever so fractionally over a lifetime, but a person's personality is what it is when they're very young, right through to when they die. But that does not mean that there's only one job that they can do. All right? So regardless of the fact that I have very low attention to detail, I could do accounting for maybe an hour if I really push myself, and then I'd need to take a break. If I'd had a mid-range level of ability and attention to detail, if I was mid-range in that, I would be able to do it for longer. And I could do it would be relatively easy for me to do an accounting role where I only had to do 3 or 4 hours of accounting per day. So it's not that simple, right? And people, anybody can cause themselves to do anything that they want if they want to enough, and if they don't have to do it for too long.
Great.
I hope that helps.
Yeah, I hope it does. It made sense to me, but let's see what there are lots of questions. So but before I read the next question, let me thank people who are logging into this program at all hours of the day or night. There's Benjamin from Ghana who's saying it's 5:30 in the morning here, and thank you for the program. Okay, that's good to know. I've got a problem. I got a question here from Sandra, and I happen to know who she is. She's from Malaysia, one of our participants who's doing a program. Which is better, to hire people who are smart with bad personality or attitude, or not so smart with good personality or attitude? That's an interesting one.
Well, again, that very much depends on the role and how urgent it is that they come up to speed and are performing really at a high level. In most roles, if you take the long-term view, if somebody is a bit short on experience and skills, but they have a personality that's very well matched to the schedule of duties, they will produce a better result over time than somebody who's got a lot of experience, but their personality is poorly matched.
Interesting. Now, the next question, I'm not going in the order they're received. I'm trying to get the most relevant ones. What techniques should be used at an interview to analyze the personality profiling of an individual within a very short time? It's Hiren asking the question, what techniques should be used in an interview?
So I said at the beginning that I was just going to be talking about profiling and not talking about my tool, but I am going to talk about my tool here, because the recruitment reports that we have give you a list of questions to ask in the interview, and the answers that you would be looking to get from those. They also give you some clues about additional training that you might want to give a candidate. They give you clues about how to set up the interview environment so that the candidate relaxes quickly and will open up to you. In my experience, and I've used a lot of other tools, there's no other tool around that does that. Right? All the rest just give you the report about the person.
I'll ask a related question to that one. Are there any, from Suhasini Rajinder, are there any recommended personality test tools available to use in the IT industry?
So any personality report, any personality tool that's any good, and ours is not the only one that's really got it, right? But they will all be useful. The challenge is that they have limited use unless somebody has gone into the tool and plucked out the bits that are relevant for IT stuff. So we have an interviewing report, for instance, that is specifically for recruiting IT people, and a separate interviewing report for recruiting, say, admin people, and a separate one for accounting. So what you get is the stuff that's relevant to that typical role, example of that role, and you don't get any of the stuff that's irrelevant.
There's a question here related to one of your earlier answers. I thought I'll ask that first. He says, your view that personalities do not change is concerning. That means that junior staff can never aspire to senior positions? Is that what you meant?
So here's the thing. Think of it as your personality is like the operating system of a computer, all right? And it's there and it basically doesn't change. And then in your computer, you download apps and you run various programs. And that you can think of as your education and behavior patterns that you develop, and they sit on top of your personality. Now, if you are really strong in some personality attribute, you are likely to find learning things that take advantage of that attribute. You're likely to find that's easy to learn more stuff, and you can become extremely good at that. And if you have a low preference for another personality attribute, you will probably find that no matter how much training you do, you won't find the training interesting or exciting, and you won't learn skills to build on top of that. So what we recommend to people is that when you know somebody's personality, don't try to boost them in the areas where they've got low personality preferences, right? Work on the areas where they've got strong ones, and then they can be a superstar instead of just a good average.
Thank you. Another question related to the earlier ones, or is there scientific American research on October 10, 2018 says that precious few personality assessments are known to be reliable, and researchers say they are outside academia is debatable. How can we choose a good one?
So we went through that slide before that gave you the list of 10 points of things to look at. But the simplest way to choose a good one is to send me an email afterwards, and and I'll show you all about our one.
Yeah, I hope you'll all have the email ID. We'll share it again after at the end of the program. We'll share it with people. So this is an interesting one. And I think when we were discussing the topic at our own office meeting, it came up. It says, can someone fool a personality profile when they know what is expected of a role?
Yeah, so I did refer to that earlier about as one of the key things that you need to look at in the questionnaire. If you can see through the questionnaire and see how to manipulate the results, then don't touch that profiling tool. And I did say that one of the biggest ones in the world at the moment, I can see straight through it. Now, there are 4 ways that you can end up with a report. Or no, there are four results from the questionnaire. All right, you should find that 98% or more of the people who do the questionnaire should do it honestly and correctly, and they produce a result that's very much like them. And in fact, that's probably more like 99%, 99.5%. It is possible that a candidate can misunderstand the instructions and answer the questionnaire all wrongly, and you get a dud report. Okay, that's easily resolved, because if you can see, or if they can show you that the report's wrong, you just make sure they've understood the instructions and they redo it, and you get the report that you want. It is also possible, and I've seen this a couple of times, where candidates have resisted doing the report and they've just answered the questions randomly because they don't want to do it. Okay, nothing much you can do about that. It will become obvious very quickly when you're talking to them that the report doesn't match up to who they are. And the 4th thing is where people intentionally try to manipulate the report, as we were talking about before. If it's a good series of questions, they might think they're able to do that, but they won't be able to do that. And in particular, they won't be able to, they've got to know and understand the program to understand how to answer the questions to produce a specific result. And I don't believe that can be done. Oh, sorry, in a good profiling tool, that can't be done.
I think you already answered the next question, but just ask it to clarify here. Can a training change the personality to some extent, or is it inherent? If I understood you right, you can't change the personality, you can upgrade skills, something like that.
You can upgrade skills, you can improve results, and you'll get more improvement if the training is applied to somebody, to a part of a person's personality that's already strong.
There's another interesting one. It says there's research, and we talk about this in the CMA program. It says nail the handshake, land the job. So as soon as they say the first 40 seconds of seeing the individual, the interviewers probably made up his mind either hire the guy or not hire the guy. What do you think of that?
So I think that's the absolute strongest, most powerful reason why that person should use profiling. Because whatever it is that's causing them to like or dislike the candidate is probably, no, not probably, there's a very high chance that it's wrong. All too often, people, very good candidates are overlooked, and all too often poor candidates are selected in that, under that scenario. One of the challenges is that many of the people who do take that approach unwilling, find it too difficult to admit to themselves that sometimes they get it wrong. But sometimes they get it right as well, okay?
Okay, we'll change track a little bit. This one is more, I'm not sure if it's a comment or a question. Your example of the same report fitting all types of personalities is very much like horoscopes in the newspaper. I have read predictions for all star signs that tell me the same thing. So I report something like that. That's a question, I guess.
Yeah. So I talked earlier about the Barnum-Fora languaging. And so it is possible to use, that's what horoscopes and so on are based on, right? So and there are profiling tools out there that are like that. If they're written in the right way, then people can and will find evidence to prove that the report was right when another individual, an observer standing from the side would clearly see that it's not.
Right. Excellent. This one trying to, I don't understand the question clearly, but maybe you can. It says all religions characterized profiling long ago. Can you link religion to profiling? I'm not sure what exactly it means, but you can, if you get it, you can answer that, or we'll leave it.
Can you reread that?
It says all religions characterized profiling long ago.
All religions
characterized profiling long ago.
Characterized.
Profile, anyway, it doesn't matter. It's something to, can you link religion to profiling? I think that's what I understood.
I have several customers who are churches, and I do a very super deal for them because they're charities, okay? And they have profiled all of their parishioners, their members who were willing to do it, but only so that they could understand them better and build their sense of community.
Right. So the next question, I'm an academic, accountant, CEO, and also dabble in arts, constantly switching from my left brain to the right brain. Do I have a split personality? I'm worried.
So that's not really personality, but very happy for him to do a questionnaire. I'll do a free questionnaire for anybody on the call who's registered for the call, so they can just have a wee look and get a picture of themselves. No obligation. We'll just do that.
So what you are suggesting is that they should contact you post the webinar, and you'll do that for them. Yeah. Yep. The next question is from Sandra again. Would body language relate to profile of a person, or basically the answers of the questions on profiling would give you the basic profile of that person?
Yeah. A good profiling tool will always be much more reliable than observing people's body language. Even, and I've worked with, or had the opportunity to be at seminars with some superb body language people, and they freely admit that they don't always get it right, because it's not a science. Whereas with a good profiling tool, that will only ever produce a specific report given a specific set of answers.
Right. I have a question from Ivan here, and he says, this profiling implementation often combined with psychometric tests, which takes 4 to 5 hours. Is it more useful for entry roles or experienced candidates as well?
Yeah. So we talked about candidate fatigue, right? So psychometric testing is something that lots of different people have their own definitions of, and for many people it includes the ability to read and understand what's written, the ability to computate with numbers, as well as personality assessment. All right? If you were doing in today's world, unless you're actually dealing with a student who's used to do, and there's not, there's a lot of courses nowadays where there's no exams, but in our day, when we went to university, we did 3-hour exams. We could do that, but not many people nowadays can sit down and complete a questionnaire over even more than 10 minutes.
Yes. The other question, I think you all sort of answered this. Can you recommend a good personality tool available in the market? Well, you should contact him, and Chris Baker has got one for you. And is there anything else you need to say, add to that?
No. I'm more than, as I said, I'm more than happy to do a freebie for people so that they can get a look at it, get a feel for it, make their own decision.
The question here is behavioral interview techniques resemble to personality profiling? Would a fulfillment attempt to recruiting a person for a target position, like is behavior?
So people's an individual's personality is always pushing them towards certain behaviors. All right. Now, as I said before, we can learn, we can train, we can build habits that overlay that, but at times of stress, the personality wins. All right. So when we're not stressed, we can override our personality. We can cause ourselves to do certain things. Immediately we get tired or pressured with time or any other form of stress, our personality wins.
Right. So this question from Farazi from Canada. He's from Canada. Can you read that? Is a phone screening interview? How does the interview hiring manager analyze my professional accounting career profile, and what approach should I follow to present myself in a phone screening interview? Now, this is from the person being interviewed asking the question.
Yeah. So phone interviews, we don't really teach people about how to be interviewed. We have reports for career planning and so on. But yeah, if you were an employer wanting to do phone interviews, we can give you reports that would help you for that. But actual techniques, which is what I understand the question to be asking about, I'm sorry, I don't think I have an answer for that.
No, I don't think it was supposed to be the point of the exercise. It's more for employers to find the right personality to fit. So the question here following, what type of personality is best for a financial accountant or auditor? Only attention to detail? Cannot accountants be fun? I mean, accountants can be fun. Some good videos on accountants, but go on.
Yeah, and anybody can be fun, all right? But everybody has their own way of being fun, and the way any individual is fun doesn't always land well with another person. Okay, so I've been, some of the funniest guys I've ever met have been accountants, but they're generally only funny when they're at meetings of accountants.
Okay.
So we in our report for recruiting accountants, we have some 25 approximately different aspects of personality that are commonly relevant for the majority of accounting roles. And the report that we produce would grade the candidate on each of those personality attributes on a 100-point scale.
Great. So the next question is, can we use personality test during the performance review period? Will it give fruitfulness to the company?
I wouldn't use it in performance review per se. I would use it as part of the output from a performance review. So you might have a performance review and somebody's, let's say they're struggling in some area, you might run a personality report that gives you some clues as to remedial programs that you might run with that person.
The next question is are candidates' family backgrounds need to be analyzed while doing the interview?
No. No. And I profiled a set of identical twins recently, and they're young. When I say young, they're young compared to me. They're about 20, and they've always lived together. They've always shared a bedroom, and they've always done everything together. And they are so identical that their mother always dressed them in different clothes. One was always dressed in blue, and one was always dressed in brown. Okay, so their teacher could tell them apart. And yet they have significant differences in their personality.
I can sort of understand that. I have identical twin brothers. One is an accountant, and one is became an Air Force, flew for the Indian Air Force. So you can, I can tell you that they were identical. Wouldn't it be good to have a variety of personalities in an organization to spice up rather than having a silo personality group? Is that what you were suggesting? I didn't think so. Yeah.
So the answer is yes and no. So, for instance, I did a work on a team building project with a company with 21 people, and it was like somebody had stood 10 feet away from a wall and thrown mud at the wall. They were just spread all over the place, and that was really, really, really powerful for that organisation. That's what they needed, was massive variety. They're all consultants, business consultants, all right, but that massive variety was very powerful for them. And I'll just divert for a second. There were two that were absolutely identical in personality, and they were husband and wife. and they said to the lady, Cheryl, what's it like? And she said, oh, most of the time it's wonderful. We never disagree on anything. Just that sometimes stuff comes up and he's bloody useless.
Oh dear.
So that's that example. Now, what we typically find though in organizations where there's, let's say, up to 20 or 30 people, is that the majority of employees are clustered around the boss. Where the boss is the one doing the hiring and firing. They tend to recruit people that they like and trust, and they tend to like and trust people who are similar to themselves. And that can be a problem because you get some people in the team who are not well matched to their job, and you also don't get the variety of different views of different ways of looking at things. However, we do a lot of work in call centers. Right? Now, the call center operators, they all need to be in quite a narrow band of personality to be very good at their work. And so the managers need to be different, right? But the actual operators need to fall into that band. I've also done quite a bit of work in preschool education, and again, kindergarten teachers, right? They need to be in a relatively narrow band to be highly effective at their work.
Right. So we've got a few questions to get through. Ask you if you can. I think this one can be answered pretty quickly. Can a personality report be useful for succession planning?
It's always useful when you're looking at, can this person do that? It's always a useful tool. So succession planning, just promotion, internal promotion, sideways movement to give somebody a broader bit of experience, anything at all where you're looking at whether somebody is a good fit for any role, it's always useful.
I guess that the new question here flows onto this from Ali. He says, he talks about the importance of the culture of an employee fitting into the culture of the company. Saying if a person doesn't have the right attitude, will that affect his performance or the others in the company?
Yeah. So that's a really important thing, right? We've got people working together where they have to, even if they don't have to interact a lot, but they're physically close together, there has to be connection. Otherwise, things can break down quite quickly. Now, we have a team building module that's really powerful in this regard. And what we find from this is that as soon as people understand each other, all the barriers to connecting and communicating with each other start to collapse very quickly. And I'll just give you a specific example of that. There's a guy who I know called Paul. I've known him for 20 years, and I've always disliked his personality. I've always found him a really difficult personality to be with until we did this exercise and he was part of it. Now, he's 40 years old, this guy. He's never moved out of home, still living with his parents, and he's never had a girlfriend. And he's never enjoyed coming to work. He only came to work because he needed money to live. We did this exercise. Suddenly he's enjoying his work. Suddenly everybody sees the really special things that he brings to the team, and they're all starting to value him. Next thing, he's got a girlfriend. First time in his life he's got a girlfriend.
So guys, this is a plug for you. If you guys were looking for a girlfriend, do the personality development. So, I mean, I'm not saying it. Chris is saying it, but let's see.
The thing is here that as soon as he started fitting and he started feeling good about himself, and he started appearing to be a very different person to the people he met, and this girl found him, and to her, he was the perfect man, and man, there was no escape from there.
I think sort of related. Do you think a strong personality, I don't know what exactly, creates a conflict in the environment? So
yes and no. It can, look, any personality attribute can create problems if it's in the wrong place. So a really soft, gentle personality can be a problem where strong decisiveness is required. And a strong personality can be a problem where more gentle team-working personalities are required. So it's not about whether one is good or bad or right or wrong or anything like that. It's about whether it's appropriate for the context.
Right. This is an important question, I think. Is there a cultural bias in personality profile test design? So do you have different types of designing different tests for different cultures? Is there a cultural bias?
We don't see any particular variance, all right? There are some, like I know that the Filipino culture, for instance, is a lot of quiet, gentle people in there, and the way that the reports come out, they tend to come out more in a certain way. But what we do is we run the questionnaire in some 15 different languages so that we can, and we do, profile people from all over the world. And we also run the reports that are linked through to Google Translate so that while we don't have the questionnaire in Russian, most Russians understand English well enough to do the questionnaire in English, and we can give them the report in Russian.
Right. There's a question here from Turai Mopandi from Africa. He says, are personality profiling tests more effective when applied to candidates prior to recruitment or when applied to existing employees to maximize their performance and contribution to the company?
Yeah. So in most situations, we think that personality is more important than skills and knowledge, all right? And I said right at the beginning, it's not always, all right? The heart surgeon's example that I quoted, but for the most part, it's more important. We would recommend that if you are expecting a lot of applicants, we would recommend that you run the profile as part of the application process. So when they fill in the online form to apply for the job, there's a link to the questionnaire and they complete the questionnaire. And then you filter them based on personality before you start looking at CVs. Now, if you're looking in New Zealand at the moment, there's a shortage of employees. We're 3.8% unemployed. And many roles that are advertised get no applicants. So in that situation, you might run the personality report at the end of the recruitment process so that you can figure out how to absorb the only applicant you've got, how you can absorb them into your business. So it depends on your purpose.
I sort of agree with what you said there, because in my hiring career, whenever I hired people, I found that the attitude or the profile was more important than his skills, because I thought the skills I could teach them, but I couldn't change their personality pretty much. the question here, you say that personality profiling comes from psychology, but
Yep.
psychology says family background is a good predictor of personality traits. What do you say to that?
So personality profiling is a subset within psychology. Now, there is also no single definition of what the word personality means. So when we are talking about personality, we mean what we say, and it may be different from what your question was looking at, the reference he was looking at. I'm sorry, I don't know if I've answered that totally clearly, and happy to.
I guess so. People are more. The problem is we've answered most of the questions, but there are more questions flowing in. We are sort of out of time. That there are ways you could actually contact Chris, and he would give you the answers to some of your questions directly. And you could try out his, if you're interested in contacting him, you could try out his tool. The tool. Would you want to put your email ID in the chat box for them to have a look at, maybe, or you want to show it on the screen, whatever?
Yeah, where is in the chat box?
Yep, there's a chat box at the bottom. Can you see the chat box? Yep. So you can type in your email ID to the people, them, and they could contact. If you for some reason you can't get through to him, just contact me. You know mine. Yes. So Chris has put his email ID. There are a few more questions here. If you send him an email, he will. Let's finish off on a little bit of a controversial note, and it's a few questions on that. And I just want to, maybe I'll ask you this one. I think the point of religion again is that a certain particular type of personality type to be predisposed to be religious. That Jill says that you require particular type of personality to be predisposed to religion. And another anonymous person says you can link religion to profiling because you need to pick the personality that will blow himself up for religion. And the final one from Prof. Janak says, a very concerning trend worldwide is religious radicalization. Yes, can personality tests be a good predictor for who can be radicalized? If you can answer that, and we can close off on that note. Pretty controversial one.
So I don't believe that personality would be a good predictor of who could be radicalized. It maybe it's something I've never considered, but I can't think of any reason why. The radicalization process. Sorry, I don't know very much about the radicalization process at all, so I should be careful about what I say. But one of the distinctions here is that personality profiling is not a tool for dealing with psychiatric illnesses. And I think that there is a psychiatric opportunity that is exploited when somebody is radicalized, like a belief that the candidate has been unfairly treated by somebody, for instance. But I really don't know. All right, but.
It's a request for you to do you have access to the Q&A box? Can you type it there? That's the question. Your email in the Q&A box. Do you have access to the Q&A box at the bottom, Chris? Can you type your email? Sorry, I don't think even if he does, you won't be able to see it. So you have to look at the email ID from the
So I typed that in. Can you see it?
In the Q&A box, did you?
So it's in the chat box.
It's in the chat box. So,
yeah.
So a couple of people, Nilanga Pereira and.
So I can do it in the Q&A as well.
Not sure if you do it in the Q&A, if they can see it. But anyway, just try putting in the Q&A, and Chintan can probably answer it in the box. Yeah. Okay. Fine.
I don't know. I don't understand how to put a question into the Q&A. That's dismissed. I can see the questions and answers in the Q&A box.
Can you type in the Q&A box?
No.
Right? No, he can't. Sorry, he can't put it. I'm sure you all have access to it. And look, if you all are serious about it and you can't see the chat box for whatever reason, I'm sure you can see the chat box. So pick up the email ID from the chat box,
Yep.
but the panelists cannot see that. Hello?
Yep.
I cannot put it. Now I can. Let me check. Okay. I'll see if I can put your email ID into the Q&A box.
Okay.
Asking for it there. In the meantime, if you want to answer one more question.
Chris, I've already put Chris Baker's email address on the chat box for everyone.
Okay, so they've got it. It's on the chat box. So I think they're just worrying about something which shouldn't be a problem. I think with that, there are quite a few questions, but as I said, they'll contact you directly. It's been put there to everyone. Everyone's seen it on the chat box, so you should all be able to get it. And thank you very much, Chris. It was a very interesting session. I think a lot of people might contact you now to figure out what's the next step, because the questions keep flowing in and we'll never stop. Like if we go for the next couple of hours, we'll be answering more questions. We'll see if we can, Chintan, is it possible to send the remaining questions over to Chris so that he can send it to us and we can put them up later?
Yep.
Okay, we can do that as well. So thank you, everybody. Thanks a lot, Chris. Really appreciate your time and effort in explaining this very pretty interesting topic for us. Not everyone is convinced of the benefits of profiling, but as I said, the proof of the pudding is in the eating. So if you want to know more about it, try it, and then you'll probably figure it out. So Chris has offered to do it free for y'all, to test it out for y'all. So if you contact him, he will send you a link or whatever to do a free testing for yourselves, and that will be great. So you'll be able to understand that better. Anything else you'd like to add before we close off, Chris?
Just want to say thank you very much, Chris, for this opportunity. It's been a pleasure to be with you. You conduct the whole process extremely professionally, and that's a help because I got a little tangled up earlier. So the calm approach was a huge help there. I also want to thank everybody who's been on the call today. You know, some of you have got up at incredibly unsociable hours, and others I suspect have stayed up till quite unsociable hours. So well done, good on you, and look forward to being in touch with a few reports at some point.
Thank you very much. Thank you for all for attending. Before I sign off, I want to give you all a couple of things. This was a unique webinar in the sense it's a partnership between New Zealand and Australia. Chris Baker from New Zealand, where it's 2 hours ahead of us, is 6 o'clock in the evening, 4 o'clock in the evening in Australia. So it's a combination, and we have rebranded ourselves as CMAN. So it's a great opportunity to showcase New Zealand and Australia working together. I promise Chris that I'll meet him next in Auckland, and we'll have some more programs like that. Before I go again, reminder, next month on the 7th of October, we have another webinar, and this time it's for CFOs. Again, it's pretty much connected to what we did today, where the lady who's going to speak about it, Elena Bennett, she believes that a CFO is not as much about numbers, but about people. I'm sure Chris will agree with me on that. The CFO is not as much about numbers. If you look at our LinkedIn profile, she says CFO is not much about numbers, it's about people. So with that, I'll end and ask you all to go in and register for the webinar on the 7th of October. Thank you very much, Chris. Thanks, Chintan. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for joining in. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.